What's up, poker players? Hope you guys are out there crushing it on the tables. Since our last video, we have had 5 cash game sessions, 4 winning, 1 losing. The losing session was pretty small, only about 400 hands. We're only averaging about 2 to 3 hours per session, but we've done pretty well since updating our HUD. If you want to head back and look at the HUD update that we did, here's the link for that. But let's jump into some of the hands from these sessions. First session we're looking at was about 1,200 hands, a little over 2 hours, with a net won of $47. If we take a look at the big blind graph, that is a pretty solid session, no big losses. Biggest loss was actually only $13.12, biggest win was $70.60, and we wound up winning 438 big blinds throughout this session, most of which came from one big hand right in here, which we will take a look at shortly. First hand we're looking at is from the 25 NL table. We have pocket queens playing from under the gun +1, and we open raise to 3x. We get a call from the hijack seat. Pretty regular player, solid numbers, only 3 bets, premium hands. Small blind comes along too, also a very regular player. And flop is 8 high, rainbow. We have the pair of queens over the board, and we are in a pot with 2 deep stacks. Small blind checks, and we check back against 2 players with very high fold percentages on the flop of almost 70%. I can understand that. I think I'd prefer to come out betting in this spot instead of checking, but let's see how the hand plays out. The hijack puts in a bet of half pot, and the small blind calls. I'd just make a call. If we raise in this spot, we're probably only going to get called by hands that beat us, and that queen on the turn is a very big card for our hand. There's now 625 in the pot, and this time I decide to bet 2/3 of the pot. You can see from this player's numbers that they tend to slow down quite a bit after a flop continuation bet. So I think this is a good spot to take the lead and put in a 2/3 pot size bet. And we do get a call from the hijack player. Small blind gets out of the way. There's now 14-17 in the pot, and the river is the ace of spades. All the draws missed, and we are up against a player who has very high fold percentages on the river and very low bet percentages. I put in a bet a little bit smaller than $10 right here, trying to induce a call, but our opponent does make a fold in this spot, and we pick up this pot of a little bit over $14. Not a huge pot. It was definitely a different line that we took on this one. It was interesting. I could understand checking back the river as well, even though our opponent does have very low bet percentages. With all the draws missing, I think we could probably get a little bit more value when we check back and try to induce a bluff from one of the draws that missed. Chances are our opponent probably didn't hit the ace, and it's a little bit of a scare card. So I think there might have been a couple mistakes within this hand. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. We're going to look at another hand at the 25 NL table where we have pocket queens once again. This time we're playing from the small blind. We get a limp from under the gun. Pretty fishy numbers, but a regular player. And we get an isolation bet from the button. I put in a 3-bet, make it 425 to go. And the button makes a call, and we see a flop. There is $9 in the pot pre-flop. Flop is 8 high, 2-tone, 2 8s on the board. We have the backdoor flush draw, as well as the queens over the board once again. And we lead out for half pot. It was the same bet sizing as pre-flop. I think this is a pretty standard continuation bet that we would make with a lot of hands, and we can induce a lot of calls from hands just like this. Any kind of pair that is above the 3s. 2s might even come along as well. We're probably going to get calls from a lot of hands like 2 face cards in this spot too, just floating the flop. But our opponent jams all in for 16.55, and we make the call with the queens up against 7s. Great spot. We avoid a 7, and we take down a $40 pot right there. And now we are looking at pocket aces from the 25 NL table. Playing from the big blind, folds around to the small blind, who puts in a bet of 3x, and I put in a 3-bet, make it $2.75 to go, and we get a call. $5.50 in the pot, and we see a flop of 10 high, 2-tone, 2 spades on the board, and 2 7s on the board. Just looking at our opponent's numbers real quick, we can see that our opponent does not like the fold post flop, and has pretty low aggression numbers as well. Kind of a call station from what we can tell so far over this player's 223 hands. Our opponent checks, and we put in a continuation bet of 348, and to a player who only folds 21% of flops, I think this is an appropriate size, and we get a call. The turn is the 9 of spades. We now have one card to the nut flush draw, and once again we put in a continuation bet, this time half pot, a little bit less than $6, and our opponent jams all in. We are beyond pot committed here, and we're probably going to be good with just the aces in this spot, so I do make the call, and we wind up hitting the nut flush and taking down a pot of almost $48. And now for the big hand of the evening, we have pocket queens once again, this time playing from the big blind at the 25 NL table. We get an open from under the gun +1 to a little bit less than 3x. We get a call from the hijack, we get a call from the cutoff, and the small blind 3 bets to 375. Small blind is a very regular player, solid numbers, pretty tight, tends to only 3 bet premium hands, so I elect to just call, being in position against this player, and we get a call from the cutoff as well. 12.65 in the pot, and the flop is queen high, two-tone, 2 clubs. We hit the top set. Small blind leads out for 2/3 pot. At this point, we can pretty much assume that this player has kings or aces, since they only tend to 3-bet premium hands, and would probably slow down with an ace-king at this point. So I just call, not to give away the value of our hand, and it works out perfectly with the cutoff jamming all in. Small blind makes a call, and we of course are going to be making a call here with the top set. We have the nuts right now, and we are in a huge pot with 2 very deep stacks. We turn a full house, and we just have to avoid an ace going into the river, which we do, and we take down this pot of $108 with the full house queens over 7s. That was a huge hand for us. 282 big blinds on that hand alone. Let's jump into the next session, where we won $378 over 2,700 hands. A little bit less than 5 hours on the session, winning almost 4 buy-ins. Another solid session. Let's start out by looking at some pocket aces at the 200 NL. We are playing from the cutoff. We get an open from middle position, and I put in a 3-bet, make it $22 to go. Big blind makes a call, middle position gets out of the way. Big blind is Vegetables Aren't Yummy, a very regular player on America's Card Room. Solid player, top of the leaderboard every week. Interesting play here, calling a 3-bet from the big blind. Flop is jack high, two-tone. There's 2 spades on the board, giving us the backdoor nut flush draw, and we have the aces over the board. Vegetables checks, and we put in a continuation bet of $28, a little bit larger than half pot, and we get a call. There's now $107 in the pot going into the turn, and the turn pairs the board. There's another jack on board. Vegetables checks, and what kind of hands would Vegetables be calling a 3-bet with? Out of position. A lot of the hands with jacks in them are not going to be calling a 3-bet. The only one I can really think of would be pocket jacks. I doubt there would be an ace jack within this player's big blind calling range on a 3-bet. So we can pretty much eliminate this player having a jack within their hand. So I put in a continuation bet once again. $46, again a little bit smaller than the pot. I think we can string along a lot of pairs here, and we do get a call. The river's the 3 of hearts. That again is probably not a card going to be improving much of this player's range. My guess is there is a pair, something like queens, 10s, maybe 9s. Probably not too many flush draws within this player's range that missed, since we have the ace of spades in our hand. So I think this is a great spot to try to get some value, and I jam the rest of our chips in, but we do get a fold. Very interesting play, calling the entire way and then folding the river, but we'll take it, and we win a pot of a little bit less than $200 right there. Now we're looking at ace king at the 100 NL table, playing from the small blind. We get an open from under the gun +2. Small sample size, only 41 hands, but a very, very aggressive player in Razorback. And I put in a 3-bet, make it $12 to go. Razorback makes a call. There's $25 in the pot pre-flop, and the flop is king high, two-tone, 2 diamonds. We have the backdoor nut flush draw, as well as top pair, top kicker on this flop. I check back in this spot since we do have a very strong hand, and we're playing against a player who has been very aggressive over this small sample size. Razorback puts in a little bit smaller than a half pot size bet on the flop, and when we make this call, we're pretty much pot committing ourselves as well as Razorback in this hand, and I want Razorback to stick around for as long as possible and let him bet his entire stack away with those very high aggression numbers. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, now giving us one card from the nut flush. And once again, I check back against a very aggressive opponent who bets pot. There's not going to be many flushes in this player's range since we have a blocker with the ace of diamonds. The king of diamonds is also on the board, so that's going to limit this player's flushes to pretty much suited connectors, which is only a very small portion of our opponent's range. So I'm jamming all in here, and we get a fold from Razorback, who must have been bluffing and could not make a call there for the remaining $30.34 in their stack, and we take down this pot of almost 140 bucks. Now we have Ace King playing from under the gun +2. We are back at the 25 NL table. Under the gun leads out for 3x, and we put in a 3-bet with the Ace King, make it 250 to go, a little bit larger than 3x the open. Under the gun then comes back with a $6 4-bet, about 2.5x our 3-bet, and now it is time to evaluate our opponent. We only have 152 hands on this player. Pretty solid numbers so far. High aggression though, has only 4-bet with premium hands, and is playing a pretty small stack right here, less than 100 big blinds, playing about 60 big blinds, and right now we're either going all in or folding this hand. I like to go all in. I think folding is just as good of an option in this spot as calling or jamming all in, and we wind up being up against aces. Not that great of a spot for us, only 6.53% to win this one pre-flop. But we do hit a king on the flop. We need another king on the river, can't get there, and we lose this pot. Could have been a mistake there. I think we could have gotten rid of the ace king to that 4-bet, but the recreational sample size and the small stack size are what got me sucked into this pot. You guys can let me know what you think about this hand as well down below. In the next video, we will continue a look at these last couple cash sessions, and we will get into some more HUD updates. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you guys have not done that yet, so you don't miss out on any of the future videos. Turn on your notifications if you haven't done that as well. Bell icon if you're watching from a mobile device. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Head down to the video description below for links to all the poker products that I use, including America's Card Room, where I do all of my poker playing, and Hold'em Manager, which is what I am using to review all of my poker sessions. Thanks for watching, poker players. Make sure you are improving your game off the table, and I'll see you guys out on the virtual felt.